Hey everyone, welcome back to Elemental Cartomancy. This is Chris, and today I'm going to be filming a walkthrough of the Open Face Tarot by our very own Robin Crutchfield from Toadstool Tarot. Okay, so here we have it here. Um, First of all, the size. So this is more in line with a kind of a Lenormand size, I would say, um, than than a tarot size. So if I show you it compared to, for example, your standard tarot size, you can see that it's a fair bit smaller. And perhaps if I show you it next to a standard playing card size, you can see, it's still smaller than that, but a lot closer to that kind of a size. Um, the cardstock is, so this is the open face tarot, available from Make Playing Cards, and I'll put links in the description to Robin's YouTube channel, Toadstool Tarot, and also to his Make Playing Cards store, where you can see not only this deck, but Robin's library of decks. So we have the standard edition of the Open Face Tarot, which is white background with kind of a sepia coloured line work. We have the Eyes Wide Tarot, which is a full 78 card deck that Robin's created. And we also have Little Norman's Lenormand, which is a Lenormand deck that Robin made. As well as kind of a various different versions of those three decks. I believe that I've covered everything though. This is a majors only deck. So you've only got the 22 majors in this deck. So this is going to be a reasonably quick flip through. Cardstock, this deck is the Superior Smooth S33, I think it is. So it's really nice cardstock. It's good, durable, shuffles well, nice to riffle shuffle. Even though it's a smaller and less cards in it, you still can riffle it if you want to. Let's zoom in a smidge, and we'll do a wee flip through. There we go. That's probably about right. Okay, so here we have our full. So you can see there's no titles on it. You're relying on your knowledge of the tarot. This is more or less based off your kind of a standard Smith Way and Marseille type majors, I would say. As long as you're familiar with them, then you'll be able to kind of tell which cards are which. I'm pretty sure there's some editions of the standard edition where the titles are on it, if you wanted to go for something like that. But beautiful black backgrounds with the kind of a white line work. It makes me think of like chalk on a chalkboard. It's really nice, and it's nice when it's all kind of a laid out together in a spread, which is something that we'll look at later. So we have our Fool, our Magician. So we see the Magician raising the wand up into the air. We have the four elements on the table. And these are the card backs, sorry, I should have said. So the card backs have the kind of the wee open face chappy on the back of the card. So the Magician, our High Priestess. We'll have our Boas and Yuckin. The Moon on the top. Empress. The Empress is nice because this looks to me like a seed that's in the belly of the Empress. Makes me think of, the potential, the idea of the start of growing something physical, which is nice. It works for me. The Emperor. So the Emperor, we see one side of the Emperor, which is quite traditional for Marseille. The idea being that the Emperor only shows one side of himself. There's always something that you're not quite seeing with the Emperor. And he's making the kind of a four shape with the way he's crossing his legs as well. The Hierophant. We have the Supplicants, we have the keys, the crossed keys. and the triple cross staff, the lovers. So again, you can tell this is like inspired by what we would normally see on the lovers card, but just the way that the way this is shaped and just the what looks like the light, it potentially gives you something. I'm going to turn on this light and see if that's maybe a wee bit better actually. Um, it just gives it a bit of a different feel. So there's different places you can go when you're reading, if you're reading intuitively, which is nice. Chariot. So we're getting the idea of the different directions that you can go in. Strength. I like how strength is part of, um, it's sort of the beast has been drawn in front of the person here, the character. Um, but just because it's 2D line work, it looks as though it's, part of that person, almost like the kind of a negative cutout of that person, which is really nice for me as the way that I read the strength card, because I view the person and the beast are different aspects of the self. The beast is part of the person. It's not like two separate entities. Hermit. So we have someone up here. I think this is like mountains. Um, so that the standard kind of a Smith Waite image is the person at the edge of the cliff, shining the light into the kind of the void. Um, but again, like I was kind of saying with like the lovers, um, this could potentially, you could look at this and see water, so it could potentially have a different feel, something different for you to pick up on when you're reading the card. Wheel of Fortune. I like that we have the crown at the top and then the person being crushed at the bottom. It really has the goddess Fortuna vibes to it, which I appreciate. I was going to say Libra there, Justice, um, which is linked to Libra. But so we have Justice. We don't have the sword. We have the scales. So really kind of a focusing in on the kind of a balance and fairness aspect of Justice. Hanged Man, the Hanged One, Death. I think it's quite cool here how the figure and the horse appear to be like massive in comparison to the people. Quite colossal in comparison to them. It just hammers home the inevitability, the inescapability. Is that even a word? Inescapability. Um, of the changes that the death card represents, the endings, the uncontrollable changes and endings. Temperance, devil. So it looks as though the devil has these people in the palm of his hand. I'm not sure if that was what was intended. There may be more being drawn at his feet. I'm not sure, but I like the idea that he's got these people in the palm of his hand. Because often when the devil's coming up, it's talking about the idea of submitting your power to someone, and someone it may well be an indication that someone has you, wrapped around their finger or in the palm of their hand. Tower, the star, the moon. the sun, judgment, and the world. Okay. So in terms of shuffling this deck, because it's a bit smaller, I'm used to bigger cards. I'm used to tarot size cards. So it's a wee bit more difficult for me just because the cards are smaller, but I mean, it's nothing. If you're used to Lenormand, then you would be fine with this. So Riffle shuffles quite nicely. And overhands nicely as well, fits nicely in the hand. But as you can see, I'm dropping them all over the place because I'm just not used to smaller cards. Now, one thing that I want to spend a wee bit of time looking at here is spreads and reading techniques that we can, apply with this deck, and in particular with a majors only deck. Um, you might be looking at this deck and thinking, I like it, but I'm not, I don't really tend to use majors only. I don't know if I would use it that much. So I thought it would just be interesting to have a wee look at some techniques that we can use for majors only decks that you might enjoy using with a deck like this. So as well as our usual kind of just reading it like any other tarot deck. Obviously you're limited to spreads of no more than 22 cards. Um, but like for example, like 3 card readings, you can quite easily, I think, pull 3 card readings with a deck like this, with a majors only deck. So for example here, we might be seeing someone who's in a bit of a difficult situation at the moment with the devil. They might not feel as though they're fully in control. The advice here seems to be to kind of just let go. So maybe the devil that's got influence over the person as themselves, maybe they are their own devil, where they're kind of putting blockages in their own way. And the Hierophant's basically asking them to let go, just have faith that things are going to be okay, you know, and don't feel that need to kind of see like exactly how everything's going to turn out before you kind of but before you commit to something, there has to be a wee bit of faith somewhere along the way. And if you can do that, then we'll get the Wheel of Fortune, which promises good fortune and suggests that the wheel is going to turn. So whereas now you might feel as though you're kind of at the bottom of the wheel, that's going to turn round and your situation is going to become more fortunate. So that's just your usual 3 card reading. There is a spread that I first heard of it on Vincent Patisci's channel. The spread is he calls it the 4 winds. It's basically an elemental spread. It lets you take any situation and breaks it down by the 4 elements and then gives you an overview. So I'm going to show you that here. So let's just take any random question. So let's say someone comes to you and says, I'm getting into a new relationship right now. What do the cards see? Like, what insight can they offer? So someone who's in a new relationship. So like I say, we break it down by the 4 elements. The first card is linked to the element of fire. So fire is the most dynamic of the elements, it's the most in flux, it's the most kind of a changeable. So with that, it can indicate you could be looking at a number of different things. It could be telling you, the aspects of the question that are changeable, that we're influencing directly and we're inflicting change on. It could be looking at what inspires you about the question, because fire is, inspiration. Um, it could be just looking at how the particular subject matter fits in terms of in terms of your purpose, in terms of your raison d'etre, in terms of like, how does it matter in your life? How is it special to you? Now, we've got someone who's talking about being in a new relationship. We're looking at the passion, we're looking at the inspiration, all of that kind of thing. Now, we do have the High Priestess coming up, and the High Priestess is typically quite a silent character. You know, they've got all of the they represent all of the knowledge in the world, but they don't represent the conveyance of that knowledge. Okay, you really need to kind of work at it to kind of get anything out of the high priestess. Maybe what that's indicating is that our kind of a made up person that's in the new relationship, maybe they're not quite feeling the passion as much. I mean, we link the high priestess kind of to the element of water. Um, you know, when you think about the fact that she's kind of a um, rules over that realm of the subterranean waters. So in a way, you maybe get a bit of an opposite to the element of fire. So maybe there's a wee bit like just I'm in this new relationship, but I'm not really. I don't know. There's just something that's not quite. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that's not quite there, and maybe that's why the person's coming for a reading. So maybe the high priestess is indicating that there's, you know, that there is a feeling there. There's something there, but we're just not quite getting it. We're not quite sure what's going on there. We move on to the element of air, which is our thoughts, it's our mind, it's our mental processes. So it's how that's represented in the matter. So I mean, the person is very focused on growth and making something of this relationship. It is in its early stages. Okay, so we've got the Empress, which is the number three. It represents bringing something into physical existence, bringing something into existence, into being. So the person's thoughts, their planning, their thinking is on making something of the relationship. It's about, making it work. How do I make this work? What do I need to do to kind of make this work with this person? That's where their head's at. We then look at water, which is, heart. It's the emotions. It's what their feelings are about the matter. Um, and again, this could link back to the High Priestess. We've got the Hierophant here. Hierophant's often asking us to put a bit of faith into it. It's about it's a card about learning and tradition, but quite often, the Fool goes through the first four cards and he's basically learning how to be his own physical self. And the Hierophant's the kind of a first card that comes along and it's like, right, okay, now I'm asking you to believe in something that's not quite explainable. It's not quite black and white, you kind of need to have a wee bit of faith in order to make this leap. So it can be quite a difficult situation to be in. The Hierophant can represent that kind of just that change in thinking, that change in thought process, or here that change in feelings. But it could also just be indicating that, being a teaching, a learning card, it could be indicating that this person is learning new things about themselves, emotionally. Um, Element of earth. So this represents the material realm, and this will be showing us, how does everything come together? You know, what does it, when you can talk about all of this, but what does it actually look like when you put all your cards on the table? We've got the devil. Um, so maybe there is maybe there's a bit of a control issue in the relationship, and that needs to be kind of a hashed out before there'll be any real progress to be made. Right now, it doesn't look like there's very much, that there's something that's blocking the passion. Okay, emotionally, things are maybe a wee bit in flux. The person is obviously committed to making things work. And I mean, that this and the devil, they both represent, very physical aspects of a relationship. So things are maybe looking quite physical at the moment, as relationships can be at the start. But there are some issues that we see here that are going to have to be worked through, in order to make a true success of it, or at least that might be what's indicated here. Now, we've got the four elements here. What we then do is we add up the numbers that are linked to each of these cards, and we reduce it down to a number between 1 and 22, to come up to get one of our majors. So here we've got High Priestess is 2, plus the 3 from the Empress makes 5, plus the 5 from the Hierophant makes 10, plus 15 makes 25. So because 25 is bigger than 22, we reduce that down to get 7. 5 and 2 is 7. So that is our chariot. We'll find for you. So we find the chariot and we pop that in the middle there. And this just gives a kind of a general overview of the whole situation. You know, if you could sum it up in one card, how would you sum it up? Chariot, you know, indicates trying to find the balance between the kind of a different opposing forces. And, you know, trying to kind of control those two horses, or we don't so much see horses here, but we do see kind of um, different options, different choices, different directions that we can go in, and it's all about kind of trying to control all of that, trying to kind of use your willpower and wrangle all that together in order to get the chariot moving in one decisive direction. Um, so that you know that we're, I mean, the question itself is a new relationship. Okay, so we're trying to kind of just make heads from tails. We're trying to get familiar with it. We're trying to still try to suss out how the relationship works. Um, and I mean, the chariot does, you know, there's potential for success there. It is a victory card, but it's victory provided that you can learn to control those different forces that are happening, those opposing forces. So that's you know, the four winds, or like, you know, the four elements kind of a spread. Um, just a quick note: if you add them up and you get a card that's already on the table, then obviously there isn't another card to put in the middle, but it would just obviously highlight, like, you know, focus on this. Focus on, you know, so if we added these up and they got to 15, the devil, then you would be telling your questioner, you know, you really want to be focused on the kind of the material aspects of this relationship. You want to be focused on, you know, the control aspects, where, you know, who's actually pulling the strings. These are things you want to be thinking about. So it would just kind of highlight the card that's already there. Okay, so that was the four elements spread. Okay, so the third and the last thing that I wanted, last kind of a potential spread technique, I suppose you could call this, that I want to talk about, it's kind of something that I've come up with myself. Um, it's not going to be absolute perfect. There are going to be different people who take this in different ways. It might not work for some people. Some people might enjoy it as a spread technique. You might kind of you know, take this and make it your own, you know, change up, you know, the kind of the groupings and stuff like that. Um, so go easy on me is what I'm saying. But I'm going to talk you through just the idea that I've got here, and where I'm going with this, what I'm doing here. So this is kind of my idea of what you might call a kind of a grand tableau for the tarot majors. A tarot tableau, if you want to call it that. So I was thinking, what can we actually do with the majors only deck? And I thought, well, you know, a 22 card spread isn't so massive that we couldn't use it, especially when the cards are the size that these ones are. So I thought, you know, it might be quite cool to lay them all out on the table and kind of see what impressions we get, you know, just based on you know, where the cards fall, kind of similar to what we do with the Grand Tableau and the Lenormand. Now, in terms of the, you know, how you structure your layout, to me, I subscribe to the idea that the majors fall into three septenaries, I think it's called, the three groups of seven. Okay, the top group being the kind of you know, the conscious group, you know, the conscious journey, the fool's conscious journey, and just discovering the physical world around about him and how he falls into it. Um, the second row being like the kind of a more subconscious, I suppose, which is the fool's exploration of the self, you know, getting to know himself. And then the third one, the superconscious, you know, developing spiritual awareness. Um, these are you know, what the three rows mean, as per 78 Degrees of Wisdom, you know, the goddess that is Rachel Pollock. Um, what the three rows mean isn't really, not the way I'm going to use it anyway. It's not really important to this spread technique. What we are going to look at is the columns. So for me, I've kind of grouped them by column. Each of the columns means something different. But before we look at the 7 columns, first of all, the full. Okay, so what does the full position mean? So for me, the fool is the seeker themselves. So whatever card is laid here is going to show you some innate quality that the seeker or the querent questioner has. So a recurring theme for them, something that's going to keep them jumping from A to B. I mean, that um freeness to jump off the cliff that the fool has, that is the force that gets him from magician to high priestess, from high priestess to empress, etc., etc. That's it's this energy that the fool uses to make his way throughout all 21 majors. So whatever's laid here is going to be some fundamental ability or tendency or something that your querent has that's fundamental to them, and that it's going to kind of keep coming up for them, and it's going to be the force that drives them, the driving force, if you will. We'll then look at the columns. So I'm going to do this. I'm not going to. This isn't going to be War and Peace because I don't want this to get too long. But Magician, Strength, and Devil. I mean, kind of looks to me like like good versus evil, and just kind of trying to wrangle them. Trying to control those opposing forces. So for the first one, I thought, well, this could be like the kind of a base tendencies, the base personality. What pushes your querent. Between what would make them go from here to here. Um, the kind of like the very base nature of them, I suppose you could call it. The second row, we've got the second column, we've got High Priestess, we've got the Hermit, and we've got the Tower. So this could be, the person's sense of self, because both the High Priestess and the Hermit represent that kind of a inner exploration. The Tower is the kind of a blasting apart, it's almost the kind of a opposite of these, but it represents the bringing down of the ego. So the sense of self, self-importance, self-awareness, and ego is something that could be explored by the second column. The third one, so when we look at like the Empress and the Star, even the Wheel of Fortune, we're looking at the kind of a positivity. We're looking at the things that raise us up, that bring us up, that build us, the positive nurturing forces in our life. So the third column could represent what nurtures and builds the querent up. The fourth column, we've got the Emperor, we've got Justice, and we've got the Moon. So here, to me, we're looking at, what, not quite the opposite of column 3, but it's like what brings them in line, what rules is it that they have to follow, the axia of their lives, um, you know, what keeps us in line, and what principles, that kind of a thing. The fifth column, we have the Hierophant, the Hanged Man, and the Sun. So, I mean, both of these cards to me represent learning, learning new things, taking in information, processing it, using it to find our way in the world. And even the Sun, it's like that, it's that shining that conscious light on things, finding the truth. So to me, the fifth column could represent information, how we process it, how do we understand, how do we penetrate the world with our minds, how do we understand the world around about us. So this could represent that for our querent. The sixth column, we've got the Lovers, we've got Death, and we've got Judgment. So both the Lovers and Death, this idea of a kind of a parting of the ways. The road splits in two and a decision has to be made. We have to leave something behind. There's an ending of sorts and a beginning of sorts. Okay, and Judgment as well. You've got that kind of a new direction, that new awakening, that new enlightenment. Okay, so this could represent what influences the person's choices, you know, when they are presented with an ultimatum, when they're presented with a major choice, what kind of things are they looking at? And then the seventh column. Seventh column for each row. represents the kind of a end of the cycle, the end of the centenary, the completion. Okay, it's the fulfillment. So for me, it would represent, the person's place in the world. Okay, what completes them. So that's a kind of rough idea of what what we're looking at with the positions. Now, because we're looking in groups, we're going to be reading the cards in groups of 3. Okay, except for the fool, which is kind of stands alone. So I've laid out the majors from the Arcana Tarot playing cards, and that's just to kind of I'm going to lay the open face Ghost Edition on top of it. It shows that we've just got that we can see the place positions if we want to. So I'm going to give these a good shuffle, and then I'm going to lay them out. I'm going to start off with the Fool. Now, if I'm laying these out in my own, I would probably have the Fool kind of up here, above the Emperor, kind of in the center position at the top. But to fit it into the camera, I've popped it over here. Okay. So on top of the Fool, we have our Emperor. All right. So that suggests that, one of the real influencing factors in this person's life could well be, the control that they have over the world around about them. Their ability to bring order out of the chaos. They might be the kind of person where it's like, if I can't somehow bring order into this, if I can't make it work in the way that I want it to work, then I'm going to struggle, and I'm maybe not really going to be interested. So maybe that's a challenge for this person. Maybe they kind of need to. Maybe this is someone who's quite uptight, and they just need to kind of just get crazy, get a wee bit crazy every now and then. I'm trying to do this so that we can still see the titles, but of course it means that I'm moving everything whilst I'm laying them out. So this isn't going to be the neatest in the world, but hopefully you'll still be able to at least see what you need to see. What I've found, because I've tried this out a couple of times, and what I've found is interesting as well is taking notice of when a card falls in its own column. So, for example, we see it right away with the Devil. It's in its own column because the Devil's place is down here, or house. In Lenormand we say the house of the Devil, or the house of whatever. So we'll call them houses. So what cards lie in their own group of 3 houses? And does that speak to you? Does that say anything to you if that does happen? What I might do is pause this and lay them out actually, rather than making you watch the rest of this, because this could be painful. Okay, so we've got them all laid out. We can pretty much see what we need to see. So let's fire in and let's read some of the columns now. Like with the grand tableau, you might not want to read absolutely every single card. Maybe that's not going to be helpful. Maybe your question has a specific question, and you might think, right, okay, well, columns 1 and 4 are the most relevant to that, so that's what I'm going to read. But let's have a quick. Let's not take it too seriously. Let's just have a quick kind of a skim along and see what we can see. So as far as the first column, the kind of a good versus evil column, what pushes this person, what is their kind of a morality, I suppose, what is it, their base nature. We've got the Devil, which we said is in its own column. We've got the World, and we've got the Hanged Man. Okay, so to me it's like, what lengths is this person willing to go to find their place, to find their place in the world, to find their fulfillment, to find where they're meant to be. This is perhaps someone who is willing to go to extraordinary lengths in order to find their world. It might involve like self, exploration of the self with the Hangman, but with that Devil, it could involve manipulation of others or any other manner of things. So in terms of like what we're saying the column means, in terms of the good versus evil, You know, what maybe pushes this person to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do? What pushes them over the edge? Well, it appears to be kind of a finding their place in the world. Okay, they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths in order to achieve their goal and you know find their purpose. The person's sense of self. So again, we've got the high priestess, and she's right in her own house. You know, she's right there on top of the high priestess. We've got judgment, and we've got the star. Okay, so this is their sense of self, self-awareness, self-importance, ego, that kind of thing. Okay, so with the, it's interesting because the high priestess does represent that kind of a, you know, everything is held within them, but it's like how do we access that what is within? So here we have judgment in place of the hermit, you know. So big kind of events, big life events, big changes, big awakenings, you know. Maybe actually this is someone who doesn't have a massive amount of self-awareness, and what it actually takes for them to kind of realize something is something really big. So maybe this is someone who like, like when so when we're thinking about self-awareness and when we need to have it, you know, sometimes we have habits, we have tendencies to look at things in a certain way, you know, and some people can kind of spot it in themselves. So if I've got a tendency to, I don't know, uh, treat my partner in a certain way when a certain thing happens. Some people can pick up on that in themselves. They can have the self-awareness to kind of know that they tend to do that, and depending if it's a good behavior or a, you know, a negative behavior, they can either promote that or, you know, they can kind of watch out for that. This person, maybe it actually takes something massive in order to, you know, the judgment card for me is like the big awakening, the big realization, the big calling. So maybe it takes for someone to really call them out or to, you know, give them big praise in order for them to see, all right, okay, yeah, that's me. I do that. Um, you know, we've got the star, which, you know, the star represents kind of a guidance and healing, like, looking out with yourself in order to find answers. So again, it's like the kind of the big events, you know, the someone else calling you out or praising you or something. It takes something outside yourself. So this to me is someone whose self-awareness perhaps isn't always on point. Okay, this is quite harsh actually. I hope this isn't me. Um, three, what builds us up, what nurtures us. Okay, this is someone who, you know, when they're outside their comfort zone, they're actually at their best. You know, when they're made to choose, you know, when the wheel turns, when they don't have full control over, you know, what is every aspect of their life, that seems to actually really kind of push this person. Okay. So perhaps someone who acts best under pressure in unfamiliar situations, as uncomfortable as it might be, that is when they're at their best. That's when they really shine and when they can really show all their attributes. Okay. So it's interesting when we say that, and then when we look at the kind of you know, when we come back to this, you know, the House of the Fool, the fact that it's the Emperor, and the fact that it's, you know, this person, how they get from A to B, how they move forward, their recurring tendency does take to do with bringing order out of the chaos. So perhaps when presented with that, this is someone who can really kind of manage situations that at first kind of on first entry they're not in control of it, but this is someone who can really kind of bring that together. um the next column we're looking at, you know, the person's principles, what keeps them in line, what rules do they follow, what you know, that kind of a thing. What laws, what master do they answer to, essentially. Then we have the death card, we have the strength card, and we have the fool card. Okay, so I mean, with the full card and the death card, we're looking at changes. We're looking at the end of one thing and the start of another. So perhaps, and with the strength card, we are also kind of when we look again at these itineraries, the strength is kind of at the start of the middle row, which is the exploration of the self, of kind of a self-awareness, self-knowledge. So the strength kind of sort of represents a new turn in itself, but we're really looking at endings. We're looking at changes, endings, and new beginnings. So in terms of what laws do they follow, what master do they serve, what do they answer to above all, uncontrollable changes. Okay. Um, the next one we said was, how do we process information? How do we understand the world around about us? Um, so we've got the Empress, we've got the Sun, and we've got the Hermit. So, I mean, the Sun and the Hermit, we're looking both kind of a shining that light on the unknown. Um, with the Empress, it's kind of a like bringing things into physical being. So again, bringing something from the realm of the unknown into the realm of the physical. So for me, this is saying that this is someone who, you know, their method of understanding things is to look at the absolute truth in everything. It's, the kind of a person who values the truth above all. Maybe this is someone who, and the truth has its place, and it's definitely, it's a valuable asset, character attribute for anyone to have. But sometimes when sometimes, what am I trying to say? So sometimes the truth can be more important than, for instance, someone's feelings. Perhaps there's got to be a balance there, in my opinion. When you're conveying information, or when you're just kind of interacting with other people, there's got to be regard for the truth, but there's also got to be a regard for and the truth and the facts and the intellectual processes behind everything. But there's also got to be regard for the fact that you're dealing with a person and not a robot. The kind of emotional side of things, and perhaps this is someone who sways more towards that kind of a harsh truth side of things. 6 was all about our choices and what influences our choices. Okay, so we have the Hierophant, we have Justice, and we have Temperance. This to me, these two are talking about being very balanced, sometimes overly balanced. You're probably looking at someone who is going to look into absolutely everything, all of the kind of possible eventualities before they'll actually commit to a choice. Um, the Hierophant is a teacher that sometimes, so sometimes this can represent looking for knowledge that's already, looking for a teacher, looking for the answers, from the books or from someone who's already done it. This is someone who's going to go to all lengths to get any possible information they can get on the crossroads before they commit to that choice. And finally, we have the kind of the completion. This, how do they find their place in the world? What completes them? Now we have the Chariot in its own column here. So maybe that highlights that this is, and it's kind of been a running theme through it. This is someone who's very much on the top row, who's very much all about the kind of a physical side of life. I think, yeah, when you read 78 Degrees of Wisdom, I think Rachel says that most people won't, in terms of their journey through the 21 or the 22 majors, they won't go past 7. Because this is like the second row is a very kind of a, going really deep within yourself. It's a very kind of a psychological and emotional kind of a place to be. and then this is all about kind of a spiritual awareness. And so a lot of us don't go beyond this very kind of a down to earth conscious role, and this is perhaps someone who falls into that category. you know um for what completes them, I mean, we do see kind of the people falling from the tower. So maybe as far as they're concerned, completion, fulfillment, the end is death, is the physical death. That is the completion, that is the end, that's what, as far as this person's concerned, that's what they're working towards. All right. It's all about the kind of the very kind of a physical victories, the control, the will, the way that you use your willpower and control the aspects of your life. Okay. And become, again, it's about willpower, it's about mastery, it's about mastering the stuff that you've got at your fingertips. So that's maybe where this person, that's their view on the world and how the world works. That's what fulfills and completes them. Okay, so that is the the tarot tableau. That's how I suggest that it's used. There's obviously, different people will look at this in different ways. They'll do different things with it. This to me was a very kind of a deep dive into just the person themselves. This is maybe more of a personal spread. I'm not really sure if, now thinking about it after I've gone right into it in every single detail, if this is something that's going to be able to answer your your everyday kind of a querying questions. But who knows? Maybe if someone's asking you a question about, really going deep within themselves, about their personal development, then this would be a handy spread to use. But like I say, just an idea, another idea as to how you could use a majors only deck. So I hope that this was helpful for everyone. I hope that it was interesting. And I guess just thank you so much for watching. Like I say, I'll put links in the description to Robin's YouTube channel, Toadstool Tarot, and that his NPC is Make Playing Cards Store. So as you can, if you want, you can go and purchase this from there. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of your day, week, weekend, whatever it happens to be when you're watching. Take care, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.